In this episode we will be building this beautiful communication satellite, and we will be placing those in Kerbostationary orbit, 4 of them to be exact. Hi guys, the plan, we have seen that my relay network was not the most reliable, it had some problems, so the idea is that we will take 4 of these satellites and we're going to place them at strategic points at Kerbostationary orbit so they will have a permanent connectivity. My connectivity was being lost and generated, so I had some problems. So to do that, I'm going to research the high power electrics and we're going to start building the probe. With that being said, we will be taking the standard design that I'm taking, batteries, reaction wheels, Octo 2 because it's the smallest one. And then we will be placing some 4 fuel engines and antennas for communication so that they can get detached. I will be using Communitron 32, and that was the reason why we unlocked the science node, because that one is an omni antenna with longer range, which will allow us to actually be higher up above Kerbin. And if we are Kerbostationary, that means I can position strategically to have one of those satellites permanently above the KSC, and then relaying data to whichever other relay satellite is available. So, yeah, that's the satellite. I actually like the design of it. It's sort of like, hexy, and it has the thrust to weight 0.63 and 922 meters per second, which is more than enough for its own deployment. So there's that. I'm now making sure that I'm setting the action groups, setting everything to be ready, and then we will be designing the deployer. There we go. Okay. So, making sure that everything is auto-strutted, rerouting so that the bottom part is actually the main part, because otherwise it wouldn't attach to the builder that we were gonna build. Then we're gonna be taking the new craft. We're gonna take actually Gigan. I think it's Tundra's part, so we're going to take the Gigan. I think it's probably Falcon 9 analogy, I'm not sure exactly, second stage. So I'm looking how to attach the fairing. I can never find the fairing adapter, which was supposed to be the fairing. I guess it's that, but I'm going to use the procedural fairings as always. Then I will be quad adapter. I'm trying to shorten the words. I didn't have my morning coffee. Sorry, guys. Anyway, we put 4 of these, and actually, as you can tell, they're overlapping. So we need to be careful how we rotate, because there will be clipping, and there must not be clipping, because if there's clipping, there will be mayhem when we deploy them. Kraken attacks and things go boom very quickly. So yeah, okay, right. Now we need to make sure that we put also a communications device here, because once we deploy these satellites, I don't want debris in orbit. So what I want is basically to be able to deorbit safely, and probably we're not gonna return it safely to Kerbin. It's gonna just burn up in the atmosphere, but might as well start practicing on the returning debris, because after all, we don't want to litter. Right, 4 of the solar panels so that the craft has its own, power generation. We don't need that many batteries. It's really not necessary. There we go. Okay, that looks good enough. Okay, fair enough. Let's set this antenna here. Good. Now what I need basically to make sure that I have groups for deploying those. And then let's build the fairing. There we go. Okay, simple, easy. We take 2 sides and we're gonna do the clamshell. Always a good choice. Right, then we have this reaction wheels, and then we're gonna be placing that one together with this. I think it's another module. Okay, place it here. Fuel tank, good. Gigan avionics, good. Then we take an engine. I'm actually thinking I'm gonna go with the skipper. Skipper is very reliable and it's vacuum optimized, so it's really good for these kind of tasks of deploying, where you need high thrust but also a good performance and good ISP. Right, so we're going to be placing another tank, and after that we're going to be placing the mainsail, the big kahuna of the engines. There we go. So that gives us 5,332 meters per second, which I think is more than enough actually to get there. The thrust to weight is a little bit on the lowish side on the mainsail, 1.26, but I still think it's good enough, I would say. Okay, now I'm trying to find the launch from Tundra. Where's the launcher? I mean, you know, launch pad. Storage, utility, come on. Where are the launch pads? Apparently in Tundra they have everything except the launch pads, and launch pads have everything but Tundra. Go! Beautiful. Right. Finally. Okay. Good. Here we go. Place it. Make sure that we check our staging. Alright. Beautiful. Now we are ready to roll out the rocket after some building. We have obviously some transfer windows coming, Sarnus, Joule and Duna. Sarnus is a little bit too far, but let's launch this. 3, 2, 1, firing up the engine and let's go. Look at it go. Beautiful. It's not exactly Falcon 9, but still looks kind of cool. There we go. Oh, and look at the moon in the background. Oh, it's just amazing, isn't it? Beautiful. Thrust weight is on the lowish side, so acceleration is not stellar, but I guess it's good. We are passing through the soupy bottom parts of the atmosphere anyway, so it's good that we don't accelerate all too quickly. In the upper layer where we're fighting less drag, then it makes sense that we accelerate more quickly. Our thrust weight is currently 1.6 already, so that's good. I will be throttling it down, so I have my thrust weight between 1.6 and 1.9 roughly. That's my goal. So making sure that we take our gravity turn, enjoying the volumetric clouds by Blackrack. They're just beautiful. Right, thrust weight, now we're getting to 2, and our apoapsis is slowly grinding all the way up to, well, hopefully 100, from which we will then do the transfer. My plan is eventually do a 100 kilometer and from 100 transfer to the Kerbostationary orbit, which I believe is 2.833 or 863 something million meters. So yeah, that's the goal anyway, to make sure that we take care of it. Right, so yeah, here we go, 100 kilometer orbit, and then we're gonna be placing another maneuver node, and then we will be make the circularization, just to make sure that we take care of that. Actually, come to think of it, why? Why circularize? Let's go straight for the Kerbostationary orbit. Yeah, we're gonna point maneuver prograde, we're gonna ditch the fairing as soon as we are pointing prograde. Okay, and there we go, fairing away. Let's turn on the antenna and the solar panels. Beautiful. And we have our transfer burn. So yeah, we're gonna go shoot straight for the Kerbostationary orbit, pretty much like the Falcon 9 did when, or Falcon Heavy did when deploying those satellites, what was it, last month. So beautiful. Right, 600 meters per second to burn. 100 meters per second to burn, and beautiful. We are 2.8373. I think that's good enough for the moment. And then we're gonna raise our periapsis until we get a transfer, sort of like semicircular period. The idea is that we raise our periapsis to the level when each time we do a circle, we will almost do 1/4 compared to the full Kerbostationary orbit, so that we don't need to do later big corrections when deploying the satellites. That's kind of the reasoning behind it, if you will. All right, so we are transferring, and then we will be doing the deployments. All right, so as we are coasting towards the apoapsis, we will be planning for our transfer. Now, the first thing we want to do is to raise our periapsis until I think it's some 570 kilometers. And after that, we will be deploying the satellites. However, you've seen me do this many times. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to decouple this guy, and then we will be doing the deployment. So there we go. Apoapsis. And then we were going to circularize. There we go. Fair enough. Okay, the total apoapsis. So it will take 424 meters per second, which I guess makes sense. So let's basically extrude the solar panels, activate the engines, and then we will be doing the burn. In those 3 boxes, you're seeing the deployments of other 3 satellites, because there were 4 in total. So I figured just basically on the main screen you will see, of course, the deployment of this one. So yeah, like I said, you guys like the picture-in-picture, and I'm doing this basically the same thing. It makes sense. It's obtruding a little bit on the right-hand side, but I still think there's plenty of information there. So I think right now we're gonna do, and of course I'm using the flight computer to execute the burns. It is much more, how would I say, accurate than I can be. It's not perfect, and of course, given the fine nature of the orbits, they have to be exactly synced. We will be doing some tweaks later on. So the rough estimate and the rough burn is being done right now, and then the smaller tweaks will be after that, using a significant reduction in thrust for the specific satellites. So there you go, and as you can tell, we have a rough orbit, 8613 by 83 something. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna point orbit retrograde, and I'm gonna use reduce the thrust to say 10 first on all the engines. Then we will do some minor tweak to the apoapsis to ensure that our apoapsis is entirely correct. 8633, so something like that. 8336, 86336. Okay, that's good enough. And then what I'm gonna do is part. We're gonna rename the vessel. We're gonna call set Kerbostationary satellite 1. Relay 1. We will mark it as relay, and then we're going to set targets of active vessel, Eve, and Duna. And then we're going to do the beautiful deploy animation that you guys saw. And there it goes. Look at it go. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it glorious? Yeah, I just love those. All right. And here we have deployed the first one, and you saw in picture-in-picture where we deployed the other 4. So there we go. The other 4, now we're continuing with the deployment. I just wanted to show you this cool animation where it unfolds and everything. Of course, once we will be doing our long-range satellites that will be capable of reaching Sarnas, and those will actually have infernal robotics parts, or not infernal robotics, but the stock robotics parts to make sure that they can unfold nicely, because they'll need a bigger antennas, and those are chunky and cumbersome and not nicely foldable as these guys. So, okay. So right now we have to also tweak our periapsis to make sure that that one will be aligned with everything. All right, good. Now I'm going to limit thrust to 2 to get it really, really low so I can really fine tune it. And the way I want to do it, guys, the orbit has to be exact. So 86336 should be something like that. So I'm aiming for 325, 328. I mean, if I'm off by a 0.1 millimeter, I guess that's fine, but not more than that. So 330, I guess that's doable. So yeah, my orbital period will be 2 hours and something. So other satellites have to match that orbital period exactly. And that's something that you have probably seen in the other screens. So right now what I'm doing, I'm gonna return this big of a vessel back to Kerbin. And it's blowing up, as you can see, royally. But, well, yeah, it has no engine, so there's no way of stopping it. which means it's gonna dip really into the ocean quite quickly. There we go. And there is our satellite network deployed. I mean, it's not perfect, like none of them are, but I have fiddled long enough to actually make this really good. The next step will be to replace this inner ring with better satellites, and I'm gonna do it off camera. You've seen me deploy plenty of satellites already, so see you in the next.